Okay, so hi, my name is Lisa Krukel and I'm the infection control practitioner here at West Coast General Hospital. I've been here for just under a year, just coming up to my 1-year anniversary. I come from Vancouver Coastal Health and most recently, and then from PHSA before that. Most of my career was at Children's Hospital, in the ICU actually. So I still identify as an ICU nurse, even though I haven't worked there for a very long time. I've been doing infection control since about 2018. I started it at Children's Hospital and then went to had the opportunity to take a position that was based out of Squamish. So I covered sea to sky, and now I'm here. I moved to the island. I retired and moved to the island and then came back to work. So that's a little about me. So why infection control? So 1 in 9 patients in a hospital get a healthcare associated infection. So that means that in Canada, there's over 220,000 cases of healthcare associated infections. This also means that there's 8,500 to 12,000 deaths per year related to those infections. HAIs are the 4th leading cause of death in Canada. So the only things that are above that would be things like cancer, cardiovascular disease. So it is a big deal. These HAIs cost our healthcare a lot of money. It's estimated at about 1.4 billion a year. So who is the IPAC team? There's a team that we work closely together on Island Health. There's about 26 ICPs. We have a physician lead, epidemiologists, a director, and a manager. Our role is we provide consultation, and I'll get into more details about what that looks like, and education. Those are the kind of the meat of what we do. We also develop policies and procedures, and surveillance of infections coming into of people in hospital. We're part of the Quality, Safety, and Improvement portfolio. So our vision is zero healthcare associated transmission within Island Health communities. Our mission statement is collaborating for safe healthcare through excellence in infection prevention and control strategies. So what does an ICP do? So infection control practitioner. So the meat of our work is preventing infections, and we do that through education, consultation, audits, surveillance. We review purchases to ensure infection control practices. We look at preventative measures for constructions, renovations, and maintenance. And we also support accreditation. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about the various things. So education that we provide is both formal and informal. So informal being in the moment kind of teaching. We develop resources, and I'll touch on what some of those resources are. We're trying to affect the chain of infection, trying to come at the various different, looking at the susceptible hosts, the pathogens, the reservoir, so where the infection can exist, how it enters the body, how it's transmitted, and portal of entry. So one of the big areas that we focus on is hand hygiene. So there is a significant amount of education that goes into hand hygiene. That's part of what we look at and we track. Our Island Health target is 80% compliance with hand hygiene. We do have a team that regularly audits. Another area of focus is we're looking at some of the basics of infection control. That's things like point of care risk assessment, personal protective equipment, donning and doffing PPE. So you don't always have to have be on additional precautions in order to wear PPE. Think about what you're doing and, are you going to be exposed to blood and body fluids? So point of care risk assessment. So again, before each patient interaction, you really want to think about, ask yourself some questions about the patient, the task, and the environment. So all of these resources exist on the intranet, and we can go into further detail on that in some one-on-one or some small group sessions about what you should be looking at. So point of care risk assessment is really your routine practice. It's always asking yourself before you see a patient, are they on additional precautions? Do they have any symptoms, etc., and going from there. So these are the new additional precaution signs. They should be outside the door. It should also indicate which bed is isolated, particularly if it's in a two-bedroom. We don't have any 4-bedrooms, which is nice here, but and always ask remember your point of care risk assessment when you're going into a room that's on additional precautions. You want to make sure that you're wearing the appropriate PPE. The signs do have indicate what PPE you should be wearing for that particular type of precaution. So intranet resources, there's quite extensive intranet resources from IPAC. If you go to the intranet home and you can type into the search bar, just put IPAC, IPAC, and this homepage will actually come up. And there's a list of things down the side of resources that you can use. There's also some quick buttons on the right-hand side. IPAC resources is a good one. So if you were to click on IPAC resources, this next one is the page that would come up. And there's some broader categories that you'll see. And you can click in there to find things. It's a little bit clunky sometimes to find things. We are in the process of trying to refine it and make it a little bit more user-friendly. So do bear with us, but there is a ton of resources available for people. This would be an example of additional precautions. There's documents, there's policies, there's some videos. You could find a donning and doffing video for and videos and posters and various things. And there's still even more. So there's an IPAC education for staff, and so this is newly created, and it's a little bit more visual, and it's got some broad categories, and as we develop more stuff, we will keep adding to it. So it's kind of divided into things like clean and sterile supplies, personal protective equipment, PPE videos, etc. Point of care risk assessment, we have stuff like fast facts, which is kind of a poster. Discontinuing additional precautions. I have spent some time wandering around letting people know where to find that, because that's a really good resource to know when you can take patients off additional precautions. So another large part of our role is to consult, and we consult on things like if there's questions about a routine and additional precautions, about discontinuing precautions. We never mind if you call us and say, I'm not really sure if this patient should be on additional precautions or not. Always happy to review it. We are also heavily involved if there is an outbreak at a site. So we're supporting staff with education. We're tracking, who's part of the outbreak, any, I'm losing my nouns. I do that every once in a while. Anyways, so we also, on specific infectious diseases, so if there's CPO and people want some more information about a CPO, what is a CPO? It's a carbapenemase producing organism. They're highly resistant to antibiotics, things like that. We also consult on construction, renovation, and maintenance. So there's a lot of resources, and we work closely with FM to ensure that we're protecting patients from dust generating maintenance activities. We don't want to see, for instance, tiles open in the ceiling because that's a risk to patients for things like Aspergillus, Legionnaires, stuff like that. We have to remember, we don't know when patients are around how immune compromised or not that they are. Immune compromised people are much more susceptible to stuff. We also consult on equipment purchases. So when we're looking at equipment purchases, we do have lists of things that are pre-approved. If we're looking at new pieces of equipment, we want to make sure that it's cleanable, that it can withstand healthcare cleaning solutions, etc. We also work with environmental services and medical device reprocessing. So really there's a lot of things across the hospital that we look at and work with. So with environmental services, we do work closely and ensure that things are being cleaned appropriately. We also want to make sure that clean linen is handled in an appropriate way, and definitely if there's ever any concerns about cleaning or linen or anything like that, you can always consult with IPAC, and we can look at it together and work through whatever the issues might be. We talked about outbreak management, and we do on our, if you look down the left-hand column on our intranet page, there is a tab called OMS Outbreak Management, and it's got a lot of resources if you do, encounter that you have an outbreak at your site or on your ward. It outlines roles and responsibilities, prevention and preparedness, and the list goes on, and there's much more. So I encourage you ahead of VRI season or GI season to go in and have a look and see what those resources are. We also do audits. We do different kinds of audits. We do environmental audits. So that's when we're looking at a unit and we're ensuring that things are not cluttered, that we're following appropriate practices, that AVHR is available, and a place to wash your hands is also available. And we provide the units and the organization with reports on what our findings are. There is also a team that's dedicated to doing hand hygiene audits, and they go around the island doing hand hygiene audits. This is an example of a recent audit. Hand hygiene rates can vary, and they're generally done each period. So there's In a year, there's 13 periods. It's a little bit more than monthly. Occasionally they can't make it up because of weather or something, because they're often coming from Victoria. You probably would have noticed them on the units doing hand hygiene.
So is the West Coast General Hospital there, that's like for the whole hospital, and then the med-surg B, that's just for that section?
Correct.
Okay.
So they do emergency, med-surg A, med-surg B.
Okay. Someone else was bringing up the stats then for the whole hospital.
That's
B
right.
was falling behind. Okay.
It varies.
Well, that number is quite a drop.
Yeah, it is a drop.
67%.
Yeah. And so that can be a target, and so you could engage me and I could come around and do some hand hygiene education with people and remind them what the 4 moments are.
How accurate do you think those are? Just because it's like observational, and I don't know what the time frame is.
So no, that's a great question. So they do some inter-rater reliability, where they look at and compare where they each do an assessment and see how they compare, and they are very comparable, and it's very specific things they're looking at.
Yeah.
So they're looking at things like when you go into the clean room, the clean supply room, that you've washed your hands, like very, very specific. They don't often get to see how they're not in the room with you, so they're not seeing how your hand hygiene when you're in the room necessarily, but they see whether you do hand hygiene before going into the room. And there's a whole list of things that they're looking at.
Okay.
So we do also, a big part of our job is surveillance. So we enter into a database any hospital acquired infections, and that would be if we see transmission of things like MRSA, CPO, ESBLs. That's something common that we see. And we look at it over time, and this is reported all the way up the food chain, so it goes all the way up to leadership, like the executive leaders, what infection rates are. It's compared with the rest of the province. It's an accreditation standard to have to track healthcare associated infections. So we also do surveillance when an outbreak happens. We have a nice little app that lets us know. We can check on a day-to-day basis, and we'll know where this one is active warning. So that means they've reached a threshold of number of healthcare associated infections. So we're not tracking. We acknowledge community associated, but when an infection crosses our desk, we determine if it's related to the community or if it's related to healthcare. And there are specific definitions that we follow to make that determination. And it's CPOs, that's also something that we keep an eye on. So around purchasing, there are on our list, right at the bottom on the left is the purchasing tab. So there's a list of approved products and also an IPAC purchasing checklist. And so that's things that you should look at when considering purchasing a specific piece of equipment. It's around cleanability, making sure that we don't have fabrics that can't be cleaned, and the surface is hard and not porous wood, etc. So it's more detailed than that. And there's also a contact. So if you have a request for a specific piece of equipment, You would reach out to that IPAC purchasing at islandhealth.ca. And then we also have listed here some information that we would want if you're sending us that request. So construction, we look at, we're looking at who's around the general area, what exactly they're doing, how much dust they're generating. We often want it to, you'll hear loud air machines because we want to clean the air and send it outside and not into the general vicinity where patients are, particularly if they're removing flooring or doing sort of major construction. I'm sure you've at some point seen these, and we also look at the pressure in the room, and so there's a lot that goes into looking at and keeping patients safe during construction. So, and then accreditation support. I already mentioned that IPAC practices are accredited. They look at that with each accreditation. Not all programs are looked at for each accreditation, but IPAC is considered a required organizational practice, and they want to know that we have a robust infection control practice or program is the word I was looking for. So they focus on things like point of care risk assessment. Do people know what a point of care risk assessment is? What are the hand hygiene practices and rates? Aseptic techniques, PPE use, cleaning and disinfection, so ensuring that the environment is cleaned and disinfected, and also handling of waste and linen is also something that we look at. So in summary, we work with everyone in the hospital. So all frontline staff, FMO, housekeeping, medical device reprocessing, external contractors, occupational health and safety. We work with public health around infectious diseases, medical health officer, and then new equipment. All the things that we've talked about. So my contact information is here. So I am on site at West Coast General, is where my office is. My local 43126, that's the best way to get in touch with me. My cell phone doesn't always work depending on where I am in the facility. But you can also try if I'm on the road, try my cell phone. If I'm driving between here and Tofino, you may not get me for a while, so just leave a message. IPAC works 7 days a week, so on weekends, contact switchboard and ask for the ICP on call. After hours and on stats, because we don't work on stats, that's the only day we don't work, you would contact the switchboard and ask for the medical microbiologist on call. Infection prevention is everybody's business. And these are the references. So thank you. Oh, I kept it to half an hour.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Yeah. All right.
For like after hours calling, the medical microbiologist, do they have a different role than you guys, or like will they answer kind of the same questions like that we might have on call, or?
They may answer some of the questions. They may they'll make they can answer the questions, so they may determine that it can wait till tomorrow and to reach out to an ICP.
Okay.
So they're medical. Well, they're also trained in infection prevention and control. So that and they very definitely want to be notified about things like if you have somebody with measles coming through the ED, like they want to know, and they want to know sooner than later. So really, the after hours is for the big things that can't wait till the next day, and physicians can also reach out to the medical microbiologist. Yeah. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because it's different role
It is.
title and
It is.
yeah, sort of things.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. If in your role, I know obviously a background as a nurse and stuff, but to become a like infection control practitioner, you did like further education, right? There's like a course.
There is a
for it?
course.
Can
So
you speak to that a little?
sure. So you need to be an RN currently, and it's an infection control, infection prevention and control course that you take. There is some approved courses. You could go to the IPAC Canada website. That can tell you what those approved courses are. So there's several in Canada. There's a Queen's course. I think UBC offers one. IPAC Canada offers one, and I'm not familiar with what some of the other ones are. It is an expectation in this role that you've completed the course. Sometimes they do have learning opportunities in this role, and so there is one posted right now for IPAC, and you need to at least at minimum be registered to take the course, if that's something you're interested in. And the expectation is that you would complete the course.
Okay. And is it just more detail, I guess, into like disease transmission and stuff, and like the?
Yeah, it's over several months. It's I did the Queen's one, which was online. I did it while I worked at Children's, and it just goes into more detail about all of the things that I've just talked about at a high level.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
All right, all good? All right, thank you very much,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
That was a great
you.
presentation today.
Thank you.
That was awesome.